Hi everyone, hoping that you all are doing well. If you have not had an opportunity to check out the selection Deus Ex Machina, you might want to check that out before you delve into this particular discussion, and also part one of this discussion or part two, depending on how you're looking at that. And so there will be a link down below for both Deus Ex Machina and part one of this discussion. And so what we are looking at is a continuation of this conversation that we had a very long time ago related to Deus Ex Machina. And right now we are looking at some oddities related to fictitious intelligence. That's what we will call it. And so there are a few dynamics that have come up with respect to this construct. It's not just the construct, but it's the spelling of the construct and this abbreviation of the construct that has now been made into its own word, essentially. And so some oddities have come up that are sort of a follow-up based upon the earlier conversation about Deus Ex Machina. And so some of these observations have been very interesting in terms of the correlations, and so we're going to look at some of them. But I do want to point out before we go any further that the part one or part two, if you were looking at that, it addresses one aspect of this correlation, and it is this God code type of dynamic that has been noted with respect to this fictitious intelligence. And so we'll delve a little bit into that before we go into the focus that we're going to be addressing for now. And so for this part of the examination, we're going to be focusing on this particular symbol. And of course, this is a Hebrew symbol. So it was very noteworthy that all of this symbolism, again, was found in the Hebrew related to this construct of this fictitious intelligence. So we're going to just go back and look at a few things from the earlier discussion before we delve into this symbol and the significance of it. This symbol essentially focuses on character traits, sort of descriptors. And so we're going to look at some of those descriptors. And hopefully you were able to figure out from the earlier reading, the silent reading, the symbols that you were looking at. And so with respect to these symbols, these are the Hebrew letters for the A and the I. And we're just going to quickly look at a little bit more related to that. Now that first letter A is the Aleph, and that is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then we have the A, which is the first letter of our alphabet, or the English alphabet. And you can see off to the side the symbol for the Aleph. And so if you notice, you see the Aleph twice with respect to the A and the I. And here you see the alphabet, you see the letter, the symbol for that I. So you have the A and then you have the I. And the I letter it stands for I actually. The I that's on your face and also the letter I. Very interesting. And it's called Ayin, and it is full of symbolism. Now this takes us back to some of those earlier God code discussions. And if you recall, Ani is another way of saying I and I am. And so this Ani symbol, which is embedded in this ayin, the same construct, it's basically also referencing the name or the identification of the deity in the Old Testament. And so that I am that I am. And so with respect to I and I am, ani is the way that you say that. And so right off the bat here, we see that there are a few interesting things going on with respect to this fictitious intelligence. And so you see the A and you see the I and you see the symbolism associated with the A and the I in the Hebrew. And so, yes, when you are looking at this A period, I period separated out, you essentially have something that looks like a God, um, a I am. Okay, and so that's what you have with this A and I when looking at the Hebrew. Okay. And so, what you also find in scripture is there's an actual word, AI, in scripture. It's actually a place, but interestingly, it has all of these character traits associated with it. And that's what we're going to be looking at. So, we're going to be looking at the meaning of this AI according to the Hebrew. And so, what we see when looking at this word AI, we see that it is basically referring to an entity that is an overthrower. Now, there's some vacillation that suggests in some ways that perhaps it is an entity that is overthrown based upon some narratives. However, when you look at the essence of these words and these constructs that we're going to be looking at, these character traits, you're going to see that it looks like this is an entity that seeks to overthrow, even if the entity is ultimately overthrown. And so it's a very interesting identity, this AI. We're just going to refresh our thoughts about the letters A and I, and then we're going to proceed. And so, of course, in our discussion a few years back related to Deus Ex Machina, we talked about this AI. And so AI started off with the full words artificial and intelligence. And we've already talked about what artificial is all about. But it has transformed from being artificial intelligence to A period, I period, to simply capital A and capital I. It's also interesting to note that prior to this, the A and the I stood for artificial insemination. And so now we have this AI taking over this meaning. But it was interesting to see it with both the A period, I period, and then the AI together as a word, because there is significance whether we are looking at the A and the I, just those individual letters, or whether we are looking at the construct together, the AI as one word as presented here. And in keeping with the findings related to these character traits, we find artifice. And so it is artificial intelligence. And when you look at this construct of this AI together, this word, you see right at the heart of it, it's very strange. You see at the very heart of it is artifice. And so you see this trick and deceive construct embedded in it. Now, again, this AI is actually a geographic location, and so it's very interesting that it has these constructs that go along with it. And so you'll be very interested to see the various constructs that we've been talking about previously that are tied into this whole thing. It's very odd. And so here we are at Cambridge with artifice, and we've looked at this before. And you see, artifice is essentially the use of a clever trick. Remember, guiling and beguiling, okay? Or something that is intended to deceive. Now, this is very important because we are talking about the meaning of artificial intelligence. And right here it's saying, just based upon the general, wording, that this is a form of intelligence that is deceptive, that it is tricky, it's beguiling. Now we're going to get into this word AI. It's very interesting for a number of reasons. There are various spellings for this particular place name. And so you have the AI, the AIATH, AIJA, which is interesting because that's a part of Niger, related to Nigeria. And also Aya, Aya, which also relates to Ava. So what we see here is that you can find this in Strong's Hebrew 5857, and it's indicated as a Canaanite city. What's also interesting is that there's some suggestion that the original location of this AI is where Palestine is right now. Now, an interesting notation about Palestine is that Palestine is not really a Canaanite region, if I'm reading things correctly. And so that's not the land of Canaan. It appears that that is the land of another descendant, but we can talk about that later. So it indicates here that this AI has multiple spellings. And then you see the interchange with the I, the Y, and the J. And also there is interchange in terms of meaning with this Ava. And Ava is related to constructs such as Kava, think about Eve, and also Hova. And so all of those are related in one way or another. And you can see the symbol for that original word in the Hebrew. And you can see it is essentially the ayin. Now this is when it starts to get interesting. This AI essentially means a heap of ruins. And so you do see this narrative about ruin associated with this construct. And so it's associated with the concept of ruin or destruction. And this is supposed to be related to the site, this place. And so it indicates here that Ai was a significant city in the ancient Near East, located near Bethel. It played a crucial role in the Israelite conquest of Canaan. And so it's a very interesting narrative related to AI, primarily in the book of Joshua. And so if you want to check that out, that's where it is. And there's also this interesting reference to the Akan. Okay, and so we've talked about the Akan before, much earlier. And so it relates also to that, and it indicates AI's defeat followed the initial setback due to Akan's sin. Okay, and so if you want to check out that narrative, you can. And of course, there are people on the west coast of Africa identifying as the Akan, and there are a couple of entities with this name, Akan. Now, what's also noteworthy about this AI is a place, but AI also had people that would be identified as AI. And here you get to see some of these transliterations that are very interesting. And so you see this uaya, and aya. And again, this is relating to that whole construct of Eve even. And then you see aja. It just keeps getting more interesting by the moment. So it's referring us to 5856. And you see the same symbol. You see that ayin, and ayin being I again. Only here it offers a little bit more information about I. And so I is another way of saying crown, wreath, garland, to surround. There are a number of themes in scripture, by the way, about binding and surrounding and twisting and contorting, and this is one of them. But what's also noteworthy about this ayin construct is that if you recall, corona is another way of saying crown, wreath, garland. And so it also indicates here that ayin refers to ruin. And here it's also referring us to a word origin for ayin of avah, and it reiterates the translation of a heap of ruins or ruins. And so that word AI refers to ruins. It also refers to crown and corona. And here it continues on with additional examples of this use, and you see ruin and heap of ruins. And here we not only see heap and a ruin, but as if overturned. This then leads us to avah at 5753, and it indicates to bend, twist, distort, and pervert. In other words, to make crooked. Now there's a Greek equivalent that refers to cause to stumble, to offend. Again, to distort and to pervert. It indicates here that this AI refers to the construct of committing iniquity, to do wrong, to commit sin. And just when you thought it couldn't get more interesting, it refers to do amiss, bow down, again, make crooked, do perversely, trouble, turn, and then it goes on into the make crooked again, commit iniquity, pervert, to trouble, to do wickedly. And here at this additional entry at 5753b, we not only have to commit iniquity and do wrong from avah, but it's referring again to avon. Looks like Avon in many ways, which also means to commit iniquity and do wrong. Boy, AI is busy. Okay, indicates at 5771 iniquity, guilt, punishment, sin, perversity, and evil. And then it refers right back to the root with avah, meaning to bend, to twist, to distort. Again, related to unrighteousness or iniquity. And in the Greek, it translates as, drumroll, lawlessness. Yep, lawlessness. And then we have fault, iniquity, mischief, punishment of iniquity, sin. It goes on to indicate perversity, moral evil, fault, iniquity again, mischief again, punishment of iniquity. And then it refers to abad. And when you hit abad or abad, you know that it's going bad. Okay, so abad, which comes very early in the concordance, it's at number 7. It's very interesting how these constructs related to abad show up very early in terms of the language. And so you have the aleph and the bet. And so it indicates here at abad to perish, to destroy, to lose, to be lost, to wander away, lose oneself. And then we have the Greek equivalent, which essentially is to destroy, to perish. And then we have an additional entry that is simply destruction and ruin. And then it indicates that the word origin is Aramaic, corresponding to abad, translating again as destroyed or destroy or perish. You might want to check out these transliterations and forms that are down below. Some of them are very interesting and they seem to relate to some other constructs. But here we also see abad and then referring back to the Hebrew. Now for this Greek, we see apolumi, okay? And this relates to Apollyon, of course. And so this is at 622 in the Greek, and it indicates to destroy, to perish, to lose. And then the meaning, this is very interesting, and hopefully you participated in the earlier discussion related to Scots. And so it indicates here with respect to this apolumi that it destroys, it loses. It says it is perishing. And so again, to destroy, to perish, to lose. Now this is such an odd construct because it's very personalized. It's indicating that it is the destroyer. So with Scoto, for instance, when we're talking about Scots, you see this it destroys. And you see the same thing with this AI word, okay? It destroys. The same as you see with the Scoto translation of it destroys. And so it has the same meaning essentially as Apollyon. And so that deepens the understanding of that root of Scotland. And so here you see this analogizing of Scots or Scotland with Apollyon. And here again, you can see the Strong's entry next to the translation, and you can see in the Strong's entry for the Apollyon, essentially, you have that it destroys. And then you see in the translation that that's another way of understanding Scoto. And as you recall, with respect to Scoto, it also meant to ruin. And here you can see that reference pulled out with Scoto referring to it destroys. And so here you see this correlation between this entity known as AI and this entity known as Scoto or Scott, and with both indicating this idea or this identity of a destroyer. And here this brings us back to some additional translation information related to this ayin. And so it indicates here that ayin is translating as I. Again, the I on your face. You can also see that this ayin is the same as AI. It indicates here, with respect to this Scholar's Gateway reference, that this ayin again is related to dealing violently with, despoiling, devastating, and ruining. We haven't come across anything very positive about this AI as of yet. And the word is also related to die, lose, mar, perish, destroy fully, perish, and lose again. And then there's additional reference to the Greek root and the prefix of that apo, which is very similar to abo, by the way. It goes on with to destroy, to put out of the way entirely, abolish, put an end to, ruin, render useless, again, destroy. It goes on with these perish types of constructs. It also indicates to lose eternal salvation. Now, this is interesting because of another aspect of this ayin construct. It goes on with these perish constructs, with this shamad construct also that's added to it. Again, to destroy, to annihilate. It can refer to, interestingly, physical destruction, but it can also refer to spiritual ruin. And here you see this Apollyon construct again, referring to away from, to destroy, to fully destroy, cut off entirely, remove, cancel out, destruction again, ruin and destruction, to cause to be lost, to utterly perish, and experiencing a miserable end. And here you can see all of these Apollo and Apollyon constructs and transliterations. And this takes us right to 623, which of course is Apollyon. This also takes us right into the book of Revelation 9:11. It indicates here very specifically that Apollyon is understood as the destroying one, with a Greek translation of the Hebrew Abaddon. Abaddon is a very interesting construct in terms of the wording, because Abaddon has inside of it several constructs. You've got the Abad, and then you've got the Don. You have the Ab, and then you have the Adon. And so there are a few things going on with Abaddon, but essentially Abaddon is the Hebrew equivalent of Apollyon. And here you can see it more clearly. And again, that Abaddon has multiple constructs embedded in it. Again, with the Abad, you have that destroying quality to it. And then you have the Adon, referring to rulership. But you also have Ab, which refers to father. And so you have father, Adon, but then you also have the Abad and the Don. And so again, a few constructs embedded in that one construct. And here you see an additional reference to this AI. And it's again indicating this idea of a destroyer and, of course, Set. And here we find another interesting reference to AI. And thank you to the person who left this reference in the discussion on Deus Ex Machina. And so when looking at this reference, we see another mention of this AI. This is an interesting book, by the way. Again, more of this coded specialness going on here. And here you can see at this reference number 68, this AI or this AI meaning oneself or myself. And then you see that it also refers to the all-seeing. And so that was in the earlier discussion reading activity that you just did. And then you also see this reference to a word in Algonquin, and it's the same thing essentially. And so you see that interchange with the G and the J, and then you have the I that can be interchanged with the Y. Then you see a reference to MAGI and Magi, the written name of a worker of miracles. Okay, so there's a lot going on here with this AI construct, more than what we tend to think of when we think of AI, generally speaking. And here's some additional commentary related to this idea of I and ego and self, and this idea of I am again. And there's also an interesting notation at this number 10 mark that this Om sound or construct is considered the negative of Jehovah, the female. And when you look at many languages, Om or M, that's the construct for mother. And then we get to this very interesting notation about the ayin. And so what appears is that the ayin has messianic qualities. And so with respect to being messianic, the AI is referring to something related to salvation, or it is seen as an aspect of salvation, and then we'll see a reference to that. And so in many ways, with respect to this construct of the anti, with the ayin, the AI, being referred to in this manner, it suggests that this AI fits the bill for the anti-Messiah. And by anti-Messiah, we don't always mean something that is opposing. It can also mean something that is serving to replace. And here we see the reference to ayin also stands for salvation. And remember, salvation is another way of saying freedom. And here we have some additional notations related to little ayin. It indicates that it is the 16th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and that it has a numerical value of 70. And it indicates here that it means eyes, just like we've been talking about, but it also refers to salvation. And so up at the top, you see the symbol for ayin, which is AI. And at the bottom, you see a character trait for AI. And so the first one is ambush. And we're going to go through the various traits that have been identified with many of the deconstructions that have been done with respect to the A and the I letters, and then the AI as a word. And so remember, it also refers to crown. Iron also refers to the construct of great. And very interestingly, bow down. Here we see AI meaning powerful. Magi. We also have it relating to Arab, Arab, Oreb, Orba. Again, these refer to the construct of Europe and Yoruba. We also, of course, see Ayin translating as Ojo or Oyo. And here you can see the translation of Ayin coming out of the Hebrew, going into the Spanish. And you see the O-J-O, the Oyo. AI also relates to the construct of covert. We also see AI referring to layer. And yes, that layer has an anagram of liar. It indicates here AI, Ayin, also refers to trickery. Ayin is related to the construct of intrigue. And in keeping with the original wording of artificial, we have artifice. AI, Ayin refers to treachery and craft. As you recall, it also refers to amiss and also to deal violently, to make crooked, and trouble. Yes, we've got quite a laundry list going on here. To mar, M-A-R, and again, notably, lawless. AI, Ayin, relates to the construct of destroyer, and as we found, is correlated with Scoto. It is related to the construct of devastate and ruin. And AI is also associated with the constructs of Apollyon and Abaddon. And of course, finally, this leads to the overarching construct of the overthrower. And all of this might speak to some of the misgivings that many people have had related to AI, or artificial intelligence, or fictitious intelligence. Many people have had significant misgivings. Some people, however, have been very excited about this fictitious form of intelligence. And so you have these mixed reactions. But what's interesting is that you have this, not only this correlation with respect to the letters A and I, but there's also this correlation with respect to AI as a word construct. And interestingly, it ties into some of the concerns that people have actually articulated related to this construct of fictitious intelligence. No doubt there are diverse perspectives related to this entire construct. And so if you have some other reflections or insights that you would like to share, please share those, and so that we can all learn together.